everyone, today I'll be showing you how to crochet this no-sew heart plant. This is an intermediate level pattern and assumes knowledge of basic crochet stitches like single crochet, increase, and decrease. I also have a written pattern for this up on my Etsy if you prefer a PDF, and that pattern also includes how to crochet a sprout plant. For this tutorial, you will need the yarn color you're using for the heart. I usually use pink or red yarn, green yarn for the stem, brown yarn for the dirt, and whatever color you want to use for your plant pot color. I'm using a cream yarn. You will also need pink yarn if you want to add blush to your plant, and black worsted weight yarn if you want to embroider on a mouth for your plant. You will also need a crochet hook. I'm using a 5mm crochet hook, but you can use whatever crochet hook works best for the yarn you're using. You'll also want scissors, a yarn needle, stitch marker, and safety eyes. I'm using 14mm safety eyes. So now we're going to start crocheting. So you are going to grab the yarn color that you're using for your heart. I'm using pink yarn, and we're going to do 6 single crochets into a magic ring for round 1. And I normally use the chain 2 method, so that's what I'll be showing here. So you're going to want to chain 1, then chain 2, and into that first chain you're going to want to do 6 single crochets. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And this is what it should be looking like so far. So for round 2, we're going to do 1 single crochet and then an increase, and repeat that for a total of 3 times in the round, and you should have 9 stitches at the end. So we're going to do 1 single crochet, and I'm going to place my stitch marker in the first stitch so I can keep track. Then we're going to do an increase stitch in the next stitch. Then we're going to do 1 single crochet, and then an increase again. 1 single crochet, and then increase. For round 3, we're going to be doing 9 single crochets, and that's just doing 1 single crochet into each stitch. Do 1, place the stitch marker in the first stitch, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and you should have 9 stitches in this round as well. So now we've completed the first half of the heart. So now we're going to fasten off the first half of the heart. I normally just do this by doing a slip stitch into the next stitch, and we're going to want to leave a long yarn tail to sew any gaps that might appear after we connect the 2 halves of the heart together. So I'm going to leave a long yarn tail, and then grab your scissors and cut off the yarn and pull through. So now for the second half of the heart, we'll be repeating rounds 1 to 3 that we just did, except for we will not be cutting off the yarn. So for round 1 of the second half of the heart, we'll be doing 6 single crochets into a magic ring again, just like how we did before. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then for round 2, we're going to be doing 1 single crochet and then 1 increase, and we're going to repeat that 3 times for a total of 9 stitches in this round. So 1, then we're going to do an increase stitch in this next stitch. Then we're going to do 1 single crochet, and we're going to do an increase stitch. Then we're going to do 1 single crochet, and then we are going to do an increase stitch. And then for the third round, we're going to be doing 9 single crochets around, and so that's just doing 1 single crochet into every stitch of the previous round. So 1, put the stitch marker in, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And so at the end of round 3, it should be looking like this, similar to the first half that we had, except for we are not going to cut off this yarn yet. We're actually going to connect the two halves of the heart together. So we're going to do this by doing 1 single crochet into this first half of the heart. And I normally do this just into like the first stitch after we fastened off. We're going to do 8 more single crochets around there for a total of 9 single crochets. And then we're going to do 9 single crochets around this second heart that we just made. And that will connect these two. So I'll show you that now. So to connect the two halves, we're going to insert your hook into one of the stitches of the first half of the heart that you made first. Then you're going to do a single crochet just like normal. I'm going to remove the stitch marker from where I had it previously because our first stitch of the round is now that first single crochet that we just did. So we're going to put that there, and then we're going to do 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So you should do 9 single crochets around this first half. So now you're going to insert your hook into the second heart half. There you're going to insert your hook, do a single crochet, and these halves are connected. You have a hole, but that's expected. So we will be doing 8 more single crochets around for a total of 9 single crochets around this second half. So we just did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we did 9 single crochets around this first half, and then we just did 9 more around the second half. So you should have a total of 18 stitches in this round. And kind of like I mentioned before, you will likely have a hole in between these two halves, which is expected. And so we're going to take that long yarn tail that we left from the first half, and you're going to grab your yarn needle and thread it on, and we're just going to sew that gap closed. So you can just do this by going across. I usually go across like 2 or 3 times just to make sure it's super secure. And on this third time, I'm actually going to tie a knot by just going underneath. And I'm going to go one more time so I can double knot that to make it really secure. And you can leave this tail, which is as stuffing, and as you can see, there's no hole. And this is the top of your heart, so it's starting to take shape. For the next round, we'll be doing 1 single crochet and then a decrease, and we're repeating that 6 times, and at the end you should have 12 stitches in this round. So we're going to do 1 single crochet, then we're going to do a decrease stitch. I normally do an invisible decrease, so that's just grabbing the 2 front loops of the 2 stitches that are next, pulling up, and then pulling through. So we're going to do another single crochet, and then we're doing an invisible decrease, single crochet, invisible decrease, single crochet, and invisible decrease, single crochet, invisible decrease, single crochet, invisible decrease, and you should have 12 stitches in this round. So we are going to start stuffing your heart, so you can grab some polyfill, or if you have any yarn scraps, we're going to use that to start stuffing the top of your heart. So I'm just going to grab some stuffing. I usually like to stuff my plushies a little bit firmer, that way it helps it keep its shape. And we'll continue stuffing as we go. So for round 6, we're going to be doing 12 single crochets in this round, and that's just doing 1 single crochet into every stitch. So we have 1. I'm going to put the stitch marker on. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then for round 7, we'll be doing 6 decreases around, and you should end up with 6 stitches at the end of the round. We will be switching to green in the round after this round, so when you get to the last stitch of this round, I'll show you how to do a color change. So again, we will be doing invisible decreases, so 1 decrease, 2 decrease, 3 decrease, 4 decrease, 5 decrease. And then as I said before, we will be switching to green in this next round. So we'll do this by starting out with a normal invisible decrease. So you're going to insert your hook through the front loop of the next stitch and then through the front loop of the stitch after. Then you're going to yarn under, pull through 2. And instead of pulling through with this pink yarn, you're actually going to pull through with your green yarn. And that's how we'll do our color change. So we will pull through with this green yarn instead. I will then knot the yarn tail of this green yarn with the pink yarn to make it super secure. And then you can also cut off the pink yarn since we won't be needing to use that anymore. And then usually I'll like to use my scissors and just insert those yarn tails inside the heart, and we can use that as extra stuffing. And then we will also be grabbing some more stuffing and finishing stuffing your heart. And this is what your heart should be looking like so far. So now we're going to start on the stem. So we will be doing 3 rounds of 6 single crochets. So around 8 to 10, we'll be doing 6 single crochets around to make the stem. And we'll be using green yarn the whole time. So we're going to insert our hook, do a single crochet. That's 1 single crochet, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're going to do that for 2 more rounds, and you do not need to stuff the stem. It'll be able to stand up on its own just because 6 single crochet is pretty tight. So for round 9, we'll be doing 6 single crochets around again, just like the previous round. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then for round 10, we'll be doing 6 single crochets all around again. We will be changing to the dirt color in the next round after, so we will be doing the color change in the last stitch of this round. So we have 1 stitch, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then in this last stitch we are going to start the single crochet and then actually pull through with the dirt color, which is the brown yarn. So we're going to insert your hook, pull up a loop, and instead of pulling through with this green yarn, you're going to grab your dirt color, which should be like a brown color, and pull through with that. And you don't need to stuff the stem. And I'm going to do what I did similar to previously. I'm going to knot the yarn tail of the color we connected with the existing color that we just finished with. This will make it super secure. Then you can cut off the green yarn since we don't need to use that anymore. And then I will just use my scissors, or you can use your yarn needle to insert those through the stem. so that they stay hidden. And now we are moving on to the dirt. So for round 11, we'll be using the front loops only, and we'll be doing 6 increases, and you should have 12 stitches in total at the end of this round. So the front loops only, if you see your stitches, they kind of form a V, and the front loop is the stitch closest to you. So you'll grab this, which is only this 1/2, which is the front loop. We're going to do a single crochet, put a stitch marker. Then we're actually going to do a single crochet in that same stitch because, again, we're doing an increase stitch. And that would be your first increase. And we're going to do that 5 more times, so that for a total of 6 times in this round. So this is our second increase. This is our third increase. This is our fourth increase. This is our fifth increase. And our sixth and final increase of this round. And you should have 12 stitches in this round. For round 12, we'll be using both loops again, just like we normally do single crochets. And you'll be doing 1 single crochet and then an increase, and repeating that 6 times throughout this round. And you should have 18 stitches at the end of this round. So we're going to do a single crochet, place a stitch marker in the first stitch, then an increase stitch in the next stitch, and we're just repeating that all the way around. And this is what it should be looking like so far. It's your heart, your stem, and the dirt so far. For round 13, we're going to be doing 1 single crochet and then an increase, and we're repeating that 9 times throughout this round, and you should have 27 stitches at the end. So we have 1 single crochet, and then an increase stitch in the next stitch, and we're repeating that for a total of 9 times in this round. For round 14, we're going to be doing 2 single crochets and then an increase, and we're repeating that 9 times, and you should have 36 stitches at the end of the round. So we have 1 single crochet, 2 single crochets, and then an increase, and we're repeating that throughout this round. And in this last stitch, we'll actually be color changing to the color of your pot. So we're going to do the first stitch of the increase, and then for the second single crochet, you're going to pull up a loop, and instead of pulling through with this brown yarn, you're going to grab the color for your pot and pull that instead. So we're going to pull through with this cream colored yarn, which is my pot color. And then we are going to tie the yarn tail of this cream color with the brown color so that it stays secure. And you can cut off the brown yarn now, since we won't be using that anymore. For round 15 and 16, we'll be using the back loops only, and we'll be doing 36 single crochets around, and you should have 36 stitches at the end of the round. So the back loop is, if you look at the V of the stitch, it's the part of the V that's farthest away from you. So you're just going to grab that loop, not both loops, just the back loop, and do a single crochet. And you're going to repeat that throughout this whole round. Again, make sure that you're only crocheting into the back loop for this round. For round 16, you'll be crocheting in only the back loops again, just like the previous round, and you're going to be doing that for 36 single crochets around. So again, you'll be only crocheting in the back loops only for this round. So you're just going to grab the half of the loop that's farthest away from you, do a single crochet, and you're going to repeat that for the whole round. For round 17 and for round 18, you'll be using both loops, and you'll be doing 36 single crochets all the way around. So we just finished round 17. For round 18, we'll be doing 36 single crochets around again. For round 19, we'll be doing 7 single crochets and then a decrease stitch, and we're repeating that 4 times, and you should have 32 stitches at the end of this round. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then we're doing an invisible decrease. And we will be repeating that for a total of 4 times around this round, so 3 more times. For rounds 20 to 22, you'll be doing 32 single crochets around, so that is 32 single crochets for 3 rounds. And I'll meet you back here after you finish. So after round 22, this is what your plant should be looking like. So you have the heart, the stem, the dirt, and then the pot so far. And we will be adding your plant's facial expression in this next round. So you can grab your safety eyes. I will show you how to insert those in. You can also embroider eyes if you prefer that look, or if you are planning to give this plushie to a child under the age of 3. The front of the plant is where the heart should be facing you. The back of the plant has the color change from the stem, so you don't want to place it there. Your stitch marker should be on the right side, and that would be the front of your plant. So you'll want to insert your safety eyes between rounds 18 to 19, around 6 stitches apart. And again, you want to make sure that the heart is facing forward, so don't insert them like on the side of your plant, because that would make your plant face the wrong direction. We just finished round 22, so I'm going to just count backwards from here. 22, 21, 20, 19, 18, and we want to place it between that 19 and 18. So I'll place them where I think they should go. And count 6 stitches apart. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'll see whether that looks good or if I need to adjust it a few stitches. So usually I'll just make sure that the center of the heart hits the center of the eyes, which it does. So I'll go ahead and grab the backings to my safety eyes and secure those in. And you should always make sure that you hear that click. Okay, so this is what your plant should be looking like so far. So now we're going to embroider on your plant smile. So you're going to grab your black worsted weight yarn. You're going to thread it onto your yarn needle. We're going to insert your hook in between rounds 19 to 20. It's going to be between the eyes. We're going to go across 3 stitches, so you can count 3 stitches and go down. You can make whatever expression you want your plant to make. I'm going to give mine a little smile. So I'm going to loosen up the yarn so that it kind of curves down, and then into this stitch, I'm going to insert my hook, which is about the center of the mouth, but 1 row down. Then we're going to go over and through that same hole, and that will secure the mouth into that like V shape. And you can just kind of play around with the tension of how much you want your mouth to curve. If you want it to be more rounded, don't pull too tightly. If you want it to be more V-shaped, then you should pull tighter. So I'm going to go ahead and secure the mouth by tying a knot between the starting and ending tails. Then I'm going to grab my scissors and cut off the black yarn since we don't need to use that anymore. And this is what our plant should be looking like so far. It's super cute. And now, if you want, you can add blush. So I usually add blush between rounds 19 to 20, just below and to the sides of each eye. And I embroider my blush across 2 stitches. So I will show you how to do that now. Grab your pink. If you use pink for your heart, I would go with a different shade of pink just to give it some contrast. You're going to thread the yarn onto your yarn needle. And we're going to go just below and to the side of the eye. We're going to insert your hook up through your plant. We're going to count 2 stitches, so that's 1, 2. And we're going to go across and back out through that same stitch. And that would be one part of your blush. And then I usually just go back and do it again just to make the blush a little bit thicker. Go across, and this time I'm just going to go out through the back of the plushie. I usually make sure that the blushes don't overlap, like that they're on top of each other so that it is a little bit thicker. And then I'm going to go ahead, turn to the inside of my plushie, and then tie a knot to secure the blush. Okay, we're going to cut off the yarn, and we're going to repeat that on the other side of your plant. So again, we're going to thread the pink yarn through your yarn needle, and just below to the sides of the eyes, we're going to go across 2 stitches. So 1, 2, go back through that same hole, and then we're going to tighten it a little bit and then go back around, but this time we're just going to go through the plushie and have it go into the insides. And that's how this side of the blush looks. And again, we're going to knot the insides to make sure that it's super secure. And this is what your plant should be looking like so far. So now we're going to start stuffing your plant. So you can grab your polyfill, or if you have any yarn scraps, and use that as stuffing. And we're going to stuff the plant and continue stuffing as we go along. So I'm just grabbing some polyfill and stuffing it. You don't want to overstuff it because otherwise it can form a very rounded shape. But you also don't want to understuff it because then it won't hold its shape. So it's a bit of a delicate balance, but you can really just stuff however you like based on how you like your finished plushies to look. So you want to make sure that this top part still stays relatively flat, that it doesn't become like super round. Since it's the dirt, we don't want it to be super round. Now we are going to start closing up the bottom of your plushie. So for round 23, we'll be using the back loops only, and we'll be doing 2 single crochets and then a decrease. And we're repeating that 8 times. You should have 24 stitches in this round. So again, we'll be using the back loops only for this round. So first, we'll be doing 1 single crochet into the back loop. Put the stitch marker in. We'll be doing another single crochet into the back loop. Then we'll be doing an invisible decrease through the back loops. And we will be repeating that for a total of 8 times in this round. For round 24, you'll be crocheting through both loops, and you'll be doing 2 single crochets and then a decrease. And you're repeating that 6 total times. You should have 18 stitches in this round. So we're going through both loops, do a single crochet, put the stitch marker on, another single crochet, and then an invisible decrease. And we're going to repeat that 5 more times in this round. So you should start to see your plant kind of take shape. Usually I'll just put my fingers inside, spread out the stuffing to the outside, and then also add any stuffing as needed. The bottom should also be starting to go inwards to create the bottom of your plant. You don't want to overstuff too much because you do want the bottom to be flat so that it can sit when it's on a table. And we will continue crocheting the bottom. For round 25, we'll be doing 1 single crochet and then a decrease stitch and repeating that 6 times. And you should have 12 stitches at the end of this round. So we have 1 single crochet, and then an invisible decrease, and we'll repeat that 5 more times in this round. So now I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more stuffing since we're almost getting to the end of the plushie, and it'll be harder to stuff later on. You just want to make sure that your plushie is super symmetrical in its stuffing, that not one side is overstuffed or understuffed compared to the rest of your plushie. Okay, so now for the last round, round 26, we're going to be doing 6 decreases all around, and you should end up with 6 stitches in total at the end. So we're going to do an invisible decrease, and then just repeating that throughout this round. And we've just finished the last round of your plant pot, so congrats if you made it this far. Now we're going to fasten off. Usually I just do a slip stitch in the next stitch to secure the yarn. And then you should cut a long yarn tail so that we can use that to close up the hole. I'm going to pull the yarn through. You're going to want to grab your yarn needle, thread the yarn through. As you can see, there's still a little hole here. If you do need to add or remove any stuffing, now would be the time to do so since it's still possible. And what you're going to do is you're going to use this yarn tail and you're going to weave them through the front loops of the last round, and we're going to pull tightly to close this hole. So we're going to grab just the front loop, which is the loop that's closest to you. Insert your hook. Then we're going to go to the next front loop. Until we've gone through all 6. So it should look like this, and then you're just going to grab the yarn tail and pull, and it gets rid of that hole. And now we're going to want to weave in the end, so usually I will just kind of go across the hole into the round and then exit my yarn. You can really exit it through anywhere. I just exit it out a few rounds out. And then what I normally do is I'll imitate one of the crochet stitches. So like there's a stitch here. I'll just kind of go over it and then exit it out another part of the plushie. You can do this as many times as you want. Now I'm going to cut off the yarn. I'm just going to use my scissors to poke in any remaining bits of yarn that might appear. And this is what your plant should be looking like so far, but we're not done yet. We still need to do the leaves, and we're going to crochet the plant pot rim. First, we're going to crochet the leaves for your heart plant. These are optional, but I do think they add a nice touch to your plant. If you're not interested in making the leaves, you can just skip forward to the next part, which shows how to crochet the plant rim. To crochet your leaves, you should grab your green yarn, whatever green yarn you use for the stem. You're going to leave a long starting chain, do a slip knot, and then you're going to chain 4. And starting in the second chain from your hook, you're going to want to do 1 slip stitch. So this is the first chain, and then this is the second chain. So you're going to want to slip stitch into that second chain. So we're going to insert our hook, do a slip knot, and then in the next stitch, we are going to do a double crochet. So and then in the stitch after, we are going to do a slip stitch, and that's into the last chain. And this should be what your leaf looks like. You can leave a long yarn tail. And I chose to make 2 leaves for my plant. You can choose to make more or less. Just gonna pull the yarn through, and then I'm going to do that one more time. So I'm going to slip knot, chain 4, 2, 3, 4, and the second chain from my hook, I'm going to be doing a slip stitch. Then in the next stitch, I'm going to do a double crochet. And in the stitch after, I'm going to do a slip stitch again. Then we're going to want to leave a long yarn tail and cut it off. Then you can pull through this yarn, and you should now have 2 leaves. So this is what they look like. So this is how I usually attach my leaves to make this pattern require less sewing, since you're just tying knots to secure the leaves. So what you're going to do is you're going to take one of the leaves, you're going to thread one of the yarn tails onto your yarn needle. You're going to insert this yarn tail into the last stitch of the green. This is round 10 of the stem. And normally I do my leaves like on the side of the plant, like here and here. So I'm just going to go to the side of my heart, going to insert my hook there, and then pull it through. You can see the leaf, what it looks like. And then I'm just going to grab the other yarn tail, going to double knot it, and then we're going to weave in any ends. That's how you can secure this without any sewing. You're just tying a knot, and the knot ensures that it's super secure. So this is what the leaf looks like, and then you're going to want to grab your yarn needle again. I usually will just grab both yarn tails to make it a little bit faster. And then through that same stitch, so that it stays hidden, I'm just going to go down and through the plushie out the back and just pull through the yarn tails, so it's like so. I'll adjust the leaf like how I want it to be, so you can make it tighter or looser. Then I will cut off the yarn tails. As you can see, there's still some green, so I'll just take my scissors and push it in so it stays hidden. And we're just going to repeat that for the other side with this leaf. This is what your plant should be looking like right now with the 2 leaves, the heart, and the pot. So now we're going to crochet the plant rim for your pot. So we're going to do this by flipping your pot around so the back is facing you, and then rotating it 180 degrees. So the heart should be facing you and the bottom of the plant should be facing away from you. So you're going to want to find the front loop of round 16 of your plant. I normally do this into the first stitch of the round, but you can start however you would like. So you're going to want to insert your hook into that front loop, grab your pot color, pull up a loop, and chain 1. And now we will be doing a double crochet into each of the front loops of round 16 of your plant. So that will be a total of 36 double crochets in this round. So we're going to start off by doing a double crochet into that same stitch that you pulled up a loop in. And then we will just be repeating that all the way through this round, going through the front loops of round 16. And I recommend crocheting over this yarn tail so that you don't have to sew it in later. So again, we're going to do a double crochet through that front loop. Again, another double crochet through that front loop. We're going all the way around. So now we've crocheted our 36 double crochets all around to make the plant pot rim, and how we're going to finish off is we're just going to do a slip stitch into the first stitch of the rim. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. You're going to want to cut a long yarn tail, pull through, and then to do an invisible finish, you are going to want to put that yarn tail onto your yarn needle. And then we're going to, this is the stitch that you just slip stitched into. This is the next stitch, and then into the stitch after that. So 2 stitches after your slip stitch, you're going to want to insert your hook through both loops of that stitch. And you're going to want to insert it through the center of the slip stitch that you just completed. And then that basically kind of creates like a false stitch over the stitch that you skipped. And then it creates a very flawless finish. And then you're just going to want to weave in this end. So I will just go back and forth kind of through the plant pot and pull through. And then I'll usually skip down and skip a stitch and go back through. You can do this as many times as you would like. And then I'm going to cut off the end. This is the end of our starting tail, so I'm also going to cut that off. And you should have a very clean finish where you can't even really tell where we finished it off. So this is what your plant pot should look like. So you have the heart, the stem, the leaves, the dirt, and your plant pot. And this is what it looks like. I hope you liked following this tutorial. Please like, subscribe, and comment below what I should make next. I also have additional crochet patterns up on my Etsy, and you can follow my Instagram and TikTok for more crochet videos. Thanks for watching!